So good afternoon, everyone. We are here to tackle about HM111 risk management as applied to safety, security, and sanitation with the topic of Chapter 1 Introduction to Foodborne Illness. I'm Karrie Acedera.
And Trisha Mae Cantaveja. Introduction.
The topic that is about to be presented will help us determine on how, why, and where does food contamination begins, and what experiences can we suffer during being ill. This topic will also help us on how can we avoid the risk of our stored foods being contaminated.
Learning objectives.
To be able to understand where does food contamination begins.
To be able to know what are the symptoms that occurs when you are suffering from foodborne illness.
To learn how to avoid our food being contaminated.
To be able to learn the proper hygiene sanitation during the food process.
To learn how to pack the food correctly and avoid rottenness.
Contents of discussion.
What is foodborne illness?
The symptoms of a person experiencing foodborne illness.
What is cross-contamination?
What are the other ways that foods can be contaminated?
What are the proper way of packing the food?
Proper hygiene and sanitation during the food process.
So what is foodborne illness? Foodborne illness is a disease that is caused by consumption of food items that are contaminated by dangerous microorganisms, also known as germs or microbes. It is mostly called as food poisoning by many professionals such as hotels and restaurants. So the E from borne means carried. Specifically speaking, food that is carried. So, a person suffering from foodborne illness may experience the following symptoms. 1. Diarrhea, also known as LBM or lost bowel movement. So, we all know what diarrhea is. It is when we visit the comfort room for a couple of times within an hour or more than an hour. Second, vomiting, also known as throwing up. It is when all the foods from our stomach goes up and it pushes and exits our mouth. Nausea, when the person experiences lightheadedness. It is when the person can stand straight for a period of time. Muscle cramps, when the person experiences tightness of some parts of the muscle. It is when we can't move our muscles and it is difficult to move our muscles. Stomachache, extreme pain in the abdominal area, caused by spasm or bloating of some gases produced in our stomach or intestines due to microorganisms. Body weakness, lose of strength. It is when at this stage, it is when the person cannot stand nor walk. Dehydration, the most dangerous symptom. It is when the person loses significant amount of body fluids. So, a person suffering from dehydration may have lips cracking, flushed skin, dry mouth, and have dark circles in the eyes. So electrolytes help the body level to maintain normal pH levels to ensure that electric potential between nerve cells that enables transmission to nerve signals. So, in foodborne illness, um, the microorganisms or the germs that does not travel on their own, it is it can be transmitted via cross contamination. So, what is cross contamination? Cross contamination is a process wherein an infected worker touches or get contact with the food, thereby contaminating it. So, um, there are other ways. Cross contamination may not be the only way that a food is contaminated. There are many other ways on why food can be contaminated. So these are the other ways of food that can be contaminated. One, exposed to unsafe temperature for a long period of time. Two, improper packaging of food items. Three, proper hygiene and during proper hygiene and sanitation during the food preparation of food. Improper reheating of food. Unsafe sources and supplies. So I would like to add up on the last symptoms of the person that can experience when someone is suffering from foodborne illness. So in dehydration, if the person is not rehydrated instantly, the person may experience serious damage such as um, dysfunction of organs that can cause death. So let's go to the first other ways that food can be contaminated. So temperature danger zone. 5 to 6 Celsius is a danger zone. 0 Celsius to negative 20 Celsius temperature is a safe zone. So for example, you go to the market in the morning and you brought a fresh meat from the grocery. And when you come home, you only put the meat in the table. So the next day, the food is already contaminated because um, it is it is exposed to danger temperature zone because you only place it in the table. And the meat will smell stinky. The meat will be deteriorated and not available for consumption, so it will be a waste. But if you put the meat in the freezer and the next day you thaw it because it's frozen, then the meat will be available for consumption, but only after when you cook it. So wait, only after when you cook it. So the main idea on how can we keep our food from being contaminated is to keep it away from the danger zone or the temperature danger zone, which is from 5 Celsius to 60 Celsius. And if you want to keep it safe, you always have to put it in the freezer so that it will not be contaminated. Um, as you notice, when you visit a buffet table, every food has flame beneath it. It is not only to keep the food warm, but it is to what do you call that? It is to ensure that the food is away from the danger temperature zone. And according to experts, a food that is exposed to temperature danger zone can only be consumed for about 4 hours. And beyond that time, big hotels and restaurants will throw away or discard the foods because it is way more cheaper than facing lawsuits, claiming the claiming the blame from the sick person who has suffered from foodborne illness, and most importantly is to is avoiding to ruin the establishment's reputation. So learning experience before it, I want you all to bear with my S because I can't speak it clearly because in Bisaya I am unique with S. So please bear with me. Thank you. Learning experience. In this presentation, I've learned that there are a lot of ways that a food can be contaminated, and there are also a lot of ways on how can we avoid our food from being contaminated. I have realized on why every time we eat at the buffet restaurants, when the limited time is done, the workers would really throw all the foods that is left in the buffet table because on the buffet table because before I thought it's such a waste because why throw it when other people to the next buffet can still eat it. But now I've deepened my understanding on why do they do that because they only want to avoid a lot of hassle from dealing with complaints and do the best to protect the establishment's reputation. And lastly, I finally knew where the foodborne illness comes and occurs. What experiences does an individual get when she is suffering from foodborne illness? We should always remember that it is not always the establishment's fault because maybe it was the supplier's fault when they did not handle the supplies properly. And it is important to keep in mind that we should follow the proper ways on how can we safety can we stay safety store our foods to avoid unexpected happenings that will harm us. Thank you, and I will then let's proceed to my partner's report.
Thank you, Karrie. So, improper packaging of food items. There are possible effects of improper packaging food items. These follows the possible effects of improper food packaging items are food spoilage. Food spoilage, if this is where the consumer or the consumer should not be injured and it is unsuitable for the eaten. Rotten, where the food is the texture change and the color will change. Foodborne illness. Foodborne illness, where Karrie says that there are causes and symptoms like diarrhea, throwing up, muscle cramps, stomach ache, and etc. Canning. The process of preserving food by heating and sealing. This is the food process comes usually in cars or jars or jars. It is very important to seal and heat it properly. Another important consideration is the expiry date of the packaged food. It should be contained an expiration date. There are many reasons why food has an expiration date because we humans have consumption where we have limited days or time once the food is reached on its expiry date for our safety. In culinary terms is referred mise en place, which means putting together the things up. Um, I'm sorry. Third is during packaged food items delivered to your establishment. Make sure that the frozen food items are as much as possible wrapped in vacuum plastic containers. So you must check it first that the suppliers that given to you, the food is packed and it is intact and it is vacuumed. Make sure that plastic seal is still intact. If the above considerations are met, then try to see if the plastic bag has some frozen food. To avoid Foodborne illnesses brought about by improper packaging of food items. Make sure your packaged food comes from a well-respected company in the food manufacturing business. Check the expiry date of the food item. Check the packaging of the food item. So you must find a supplier that is from a well-known respected company. And when the product arrives, you must check everything on it and and the expiration and the labeling and all. Labeling should be intact and not tampered. Canned items should be free from rust. Buy from trusted retail outlets. In culinary terms, is referred mise en place, which means putting things together before anything else. Poor hygiene and sanitation during the preparation of the food. Food preparation is the prerequisite, before cooking. Cutting the meat into portions, arranging accurately all the needed ingredients, peel and slice the ingredients, properly wash the all needed ingredients. Clean and prepare the needed equipment for doing the cooking. To prepare the food in the most hygienic manner, we would seriously state this: the person preparing the food should wear complete chef uniform. The person prepares the food should wear complete chef uniform. It should be properly washed and disinfected from the workplace. The area where the food is prepared. The food should be restricted only to the kitchen staff before doing the cooking. Proper ways of disposal. Leftovers should be placed. Oh no. Proper ways of disposal garbage. While you are cooking and cutting the meat and the vegetable, you must place your garbage on their restricted places like the biodegradable, general waste, and the recycle. Improper heating the food. Reheating of leftover is very common among many people here in the Philippines. Leftovers leftovers should be replaced freezer first before heating should not be stayed for 4 hours before reheating on the oven, or you can just cook as long as the staging time will not be stayed for more than 4 hours. Unsafe sources and suppliers. In the food service industry, it is very important that your raw ingredients from a reliable and safe sources. Before anything else in starting a business, especially when ma- you are an owner of a restaurant, you must be looking first for a well-respected suppliers, and your items are safe for your customers and less hassle. Before anything else, you must be considered, and it is okay to spend more as long as your products and items are safe and 100% safety for your customers. My learning experience. The presentation enlightens my knowledge about everything about packaging food, proper sanitation, and the expiration date, among others. I have learned so far how to pack food, especially in cans, since we have small business, which concludes packaging in something. I learned more on how to pack the food items in a proper way, with good and proper sanitation on it, and indicating the expiration. We humans do have a limit consumption of food once it reaches an expiry date, which we are not allowed to eat, or else it will be deteriorate. We must be responsible enough to follow the said expiration uh, date Otherwise, it will cause foodborne illness. Many possible ways can cause foodborne illness, not just on a, on a not just on a following expiration date. Poor hygiene and sanitation during the preparation of the food would be on top of it. Hygiene is the most important and at the very thing to learn on how to stock food and everything in line will follow. That's why buying from the big manufacturing businesses is a must. Buying a small business would be great and helpful too, but we must assure the safety of our health.
So, thank you everyone for listening, and we hope that you learned something from it. And
Thank
that's
you.
all. Thank you.
Thank you.